If winning the war in Iran was as simple as taking or destroying Kharg Island, the hub from which Iran exports almost all of its oil, a key pillar of its overall economy, why hasn't the U.S. done it yet?
Trump now says American troops could seize Kharg Island, which is the key to the country's oil exports.
100% of that revenue generating capability is on a single island. Mr. President, take Kharg Island. This war is over.
The U.S. has already attacked the island's military sites. This was within just a couple of weeks of the start of the war. And for the last several weeks, I've seen report after report that the White House is considering a much heavier kind of strike. Most recently, in an interview with the Financial Times, Trump said, maybe we take Kharg Island, maybe we don't. We have a lot of options. I don't think they have any defense. We could take it very easily. So again, why don't they? They're certainly posturing like they will.
The Washington Post today said that the Pentagon is getting ready for what it could be ground operations in Iran involving Kharg Island.
The U.S. military now has thousands of troops, ground troops, deployed to the Middle East, and Kharg Island could be a target.
But Trump will also know, inching closer to a ground operation in Iran, even on an island less than half the size of Manhattan, could wind up being an enormous mistake. I'll show you why. Kharg Island is also known as the Forbidden Island because of how closely Iran guards it. You don't just wander onto Kharg Island, and for good reason, because Iran's most valuable commodity, oil, is responsible for somewhere up to a fifth of its economy. 90% of that oil is exported from Kharg Island. It almost has to be, because 3 of Iran's largest producing oil fields are here, here, and here, part of an entire network of oil fields. But just the 3 sites I pointed out are capable of producing millions of barrels of oil a day, with known reserves in the billions. They're connected by pipeline to Kharg Island. Iran also drills for oil just offshore, nearly a dozen major oil fields in Iranian waters. They also shuttle oil to world markets via Kharg Island. And the reason Iran can't easily ship that oil from anywhere else, you can figure out just by looking at the water. The darker, the deeper, especially around this T-shaped jetty. So if you looked at Kharg Island from underwater, it would be a very kind of cliff-like steep drop-off. If you were to compare that to Iranian coastal waters connected to the mainland, particularly where Iran's biggest oil fields are, it's all shallow, more sloped than steep. Depth matters here because among the biggest oil tankers in the world, which ship Iranian oil, they're called very large crude carriers, load them up with 300,000 tons of oil, and you'll need a lot of clearance underneath the ship as it gets weighed down. Shallow water doesn't work. So in this respect, for Iran, Kharg Island is singular, and it spent decades relying on this land in deep water.
Because this regime, since its coming to power in 1979, has been under sanctions, it's not had the ability to develop alternatives. Those require investments. There are technological solutions to all these problems of, shallow waters and whatnot. But the problem with the Iranians is that they've been under sanctions for so long, they just, A, can't do business, B, don't have the investments, and C, need that technology that doesn't come in because Iran has been internationally isolated.
Now, in good times, this isn't really a problem because it's a very centralized hub, incredibly efficient, a focused, fully integrated export machine. So let's ask and answer the question once again. Why can't the U.S. just take it? So I'll start by saying the U.S. probably could just take Kharg Island. I haven't seen anyone dispute that.
Absolutely strong enough, and we could do it. There's no question about it.
There's very little that the U.S. military can't do. Except
one thing it can't do is take Kharg Island without taking losses itself.
The 31st MU could probably do it. I think the 82nd Airborne, the Immediate Ready Brigade, could probably do it. But, at what cost?
Let's game this out. You're the United States military. You've brought warships to Iran, destroyers, aircraft carriers. But if you're going to take Kharg Island, you can't just bombard it from afar. You need boots on the ground. So you mobilize thousands of Marines and pile them into these landing craft air cushion, LCAC, high-speed amphibious hovercraft. These are so big, you can put an M1 Abrams tank on board. And these are so versatile, they're capable of landing even in more shallow water. So you set course for the Iranian shoreline in the Persian Gulf. The plan is to secure Kharg Island by taking this land as well to establish a bit of a perimeter. But Iran knows this attack is coming. It's been dotting the narrow choke point that is the Strait of Hormuz with sea mines in unknown numbers, unknown positions,
which are just as deadly and hard to disable and hard to find as landmines. We've been talking for weeks now about how the Strait of Hormuz is closed to oil tankers trying to get out of the strait, and here we are talking about probably Marines trying to get into the strait. So it's sort of the same problem in reverse.
And while you're dealing with that problem, there's another overhead.
Now, we also know they have drones. They developed the Shahad drone, years ago, and we know that they have thousands and thousands of these.
These drones, cheap, effective, can hit anywhere in the country at any time. But Kharg Island is also so close to shore.
The closeness to the Iranian mainland is why the forces there would be so vulnerable, because Iran actually doesn't have to put anything on Kharg Island to defend it.
Almost all attacks benefit for being very close to land from an Iranian point of view.
Yeah, there's basically nowhere you can be in the Persian Gulf on the approach to Iran, to Kharg Island, where U.S. troops wouldn't be under a constant barrage.
After landing on the island, any forces there would be basically sitting ducks for drone attacks, artillery barrages, missile attacks, and it'd be very difficult for them to defend themselves.
Artillery can be absolutely deadly, particularly if you're sitting exposed in the middle of an island and you don't really have the defensive fortifications that you might normally have.
And we haven't even talked about the challenges of holding the area once you've taken it. For at least a week, there have been widespread reports of Iran building up its defenses at Kharg Island. Defenses designed to repel troops and enemy fire coming from above, say, like the 1,000 or so paratroopers the U.S. is said to be preparing for battle. Iran is also believed to have laid anti-personnel, even anti-tank mines, to keep America's heaviest firepower from building up.
If they want to move big air defenses or they want to move amphibious vehicles onto the beach there or into the territory of the island, it would be basically impossible if there were anti-tank mines there.
They have 1,000 miles of coastline, thousands of small boats. There are just so many things that they can do to make our life miserable there, number one, and number two, to kill Americans.
And Iran has been preparing for this, not just for the last several weeks, but even since before the start of the war. The amount of oil Iran was shipping out from Kharg Island surged in the days leading up to the first U.S. and Israeli attack. The thinking? Maybe that Iran was trying to hollow the island out, making money, clearing out inventory, because it knew an attack was coming. So, if that's true, how else, in terms of their defenses, might they have been preparing Kharg Island?
When you're a soldier, and I've fought in war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and you don't know what you don't know. You won't know until you're on the ground just how bad it is. And when that happens, it's too late, okay? We'll already be committed, we'll already be exposed, and American blood will already be shed.
The thing we heard again and again from the experts we spoke to for this story was how they couldn't really understand the strategic value of capturing Kharg Island, especially given the cost.
I mean, it'll probably be in the dozens, maybe hundreds, of casualties, to take this.
It wouldn't surprise me if there were several hundred or 1,000 casualties from an operation like that if it went badly wrong.
Now, in taking Kharg Island, could the U.S. grievously wound Iran's economy? Yes. But then what?
These are a dedicated, tough, resilient people. They are not going to be swayed by reduced oil revenues, okay? It's an existential threat to them, and they are very, very tough.
Even if the U.S. were to simply destroy the island from the air, Iran would likely see that as crossing a red line. They could decide to then further retaliate against America's allies in the Middle East.
A missile fragment falling to the ground and exploding in Doha, the capital of Qatar.
2 drones have hit the U.S. Embassy in Saudi Arabia's capital, Riyadh.
That's Iranian state media showing what it says were missiles launched towards Kuwait.
And American bases in the region would also be vulnerable to attack, all of which still ignores the elephant in the room, which is that even if you get through the mines and the boats and the drones and the missiles and the artillery and you land and you take and you hold, whatever happens to Kharg Island doesn't get Persian Gulf oil flowing again. It doesn't reopen the Strait of Hormuz.
Could they take Kharg Island? Maybe, probably, but it would have a very, very high cost and provide very little strategic value. And maybe that's the kind of outcome that the president needs to be able to walk away, to say this is the final blow and now we're done. But if it doesn't open the Strait of Hormuz, in my view, it still looks like a failure.
So we're back to the original question of asking whether the United States is about to make a major mistake. But I'll leave you with this thought. About 2 weeks into the war, Trump did order a strike on Kharg Island. By his telling, the U.S. totally obliterated every military target in Iran's crown jewel. Then he added a threat veiled as mercy. I have chosen not to wipe out the oil infrastructure on the island. However, should Iran or anyone else do anything to interfere with the free and safe passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, I will immediately reconsider this decision. I think it's telling that Iran did block traffic in the Strait of Hormuz, still does today, and Trump has not yet followed through on his threat. Maybe because he knows how dangerous that follow-through would be. Maybe because he sees more value in threatening Kharg Island than actually taking it. Or maybe he just hasn't gotten to it yet. I don't know. But everyone seems to agree boots on the ground would mean more American lives lost. And even a US president as bold and unapologetic as Donald Trump would have to answer for that.